Hi, everyone. I'm Kathy Feeback. I'm the owner of Main Point Books. We're in Wayne, Pennsylvania, and we're thrilled to be co-hosting If You Get Hit by a Bus with the Radnor Memorial Library tonight. And Pam Sador is here from the library.
And hi, everybody. Thank you for coming. Thank you for joining us this evening.
So as you all know, Radnor Memorial Library is one of our great resources in Wayne. And I feel like If You Get Hit by a Bus is going to be another great resource that we all need. And I'm hoping to make it a prerequisite for everybody who's made me their executor. Anyway, tonight we would like to welcome Abby Schneider. I'm going to mispronounce her name, Schneidrman?
Schneidrman.
Schneidrman. Oh, I just can't type. Okay. That's easier. Schneidrman, Adam Seifer, and Jean Newman, and all of you. Abby and Adam are the co-founders and CEOs of Everplans and are industry experts in digital estate planning, technology, and consumerism. Abby is a Forbes.com contributor and has been featured in the New York Times, Wall Street Journal, and CNBC. Adam is the inventor of the social networking patent now owned by LinkedIn. Jean grew up in Bromont and has spent his career as a writer, editor, and content leader for Maxim.com, Hachette Digital, and other lifestyle properties. He is Everplan's editorial and education director. Just excuse me while I let a few more people in. The authors are going to speak for about 45 minutes, and there will be about 15 minutes for your questions. And we're hoping to actually open it up for some of you to tell your stories and why you find this to be sort of relevant activity for the evening. If you put your questions into the chat, I'll make sure as many of them are asked at the end as possible. And since so many of you have signed up tonight, please keep your audio on mute, at least until you speak and tell your own stories. If any of you don't have the book and would like it, we have plenty of copies at the store. You can get it at mainpointbooks.com, or you can come in. We're open for shopping by a few people at a time. You can put your name on hold at the library. All the copies are taken out at the moment, but they will put you on the queue. Anyway, I don't want to talk anymore. So if you guys would like to take over.
Well, thank you so much, Kathy. Adam, Jean, and I are thrilled to be here tonight. And I thought maybe what I would do is, before we get into the book, which is in case you get hit by a bus, how to organize your life now for when you're not around later. I thought what I would do is maybe tell a little bit of the story of how this all came to be. And it actually all started about 10 years ago when I was planning my wedding. And I was using all of these great online resources that are out there, like theknot.com and Martha Stewart's websites. And I was on them every single day. I was on their apps and their guides and their calendars and their checklists. And I say this all the time. I don't know why my brain went from marriage to death, but I started to think about what's next in life and what are the other resources that are out there that are going to guide me through the rest of my life. And I just started looking into life stages. Adam and I are both repeat entrepreneurs. And so out of curiosity, I just started researching what was out there and found that there were plenty of resources for people having weddings, plenty of resources for having kids, plenty of resources for sending your kids off to college, financial planning, even retirement planning. But after retirement planning, that was it. There were no other resources online. And I mentioned this idea to Adam and said, who's helping people deal with death online and the last life stage? And he said, well, somebody must be, because it's the biggest life stage that there is. Not everybody gets married, not everybody has kids, but ultimately we all have to face this particular life stage, whether it's for ourselves or dealing with our parents. And so we just started looking into it, and we found that after about a year of meeting up at each other's apartments and coffee shops, we were kind of shocked and frankly appalled that there was absolutely nothing out there. And so the original idea behind Everplans, the company that we've been building for the past 10 years, was to create the first modern consumer company focused on what we now call life and legacy planning. And so we started actually by building this business. We started by creating articles on everything from how to create a will, to what to wear to a funeral, to what does a healthcare proxy do. And this is actually a picture of our team from, what is this, like a week ago? But this is a picture of our team on a Zoom call recently. But our company grew, and we ended up getting, over 4 million people a year who came to our website just to read our articles, which proved that there was clearly a need for this type of information. But a big part of our personal story is that about a year after we started, a tragedy occurred in my family, one that would change everything for us and really the company forever. But my 51-year-old brother was on his way to lunch while he was on vacation with his family when he was killed in a head-on collision by an impaired driver driving down the wrong side of the road. And it was an absolute disaster for us. My family was thrust into this position that many families experience. We were shocked, we were heartbroken, and we were unsure of what to do next. My brother had made some financial arrangements, but my family had no idea what he would have wanted. And suddenly we had to make all sorts of stressful and expensive decisions in an incredibly short amount of time. And this is actually a picture of us together. This was my favorite picture of us together when I was about 2 years old. But this event really made Adam and I realize that in order to make a difference for people at their time of greatest need, we had to help them get a plan in place way ahead of time. That way, if a tragedy or emergency struck, families would have easy access to everything that they needed. And so we continued building our planning platform. And that's when our secret weapon, Gene, came aboard to help make the whole topic more relatable and accessible to all. And this book is really a culmination of everything that we've learned and will empower and inspire everyone to get a plan in place. But when we started writing the book well over a year ago, we obviously did not know that the world was about to change the way that it has, which we address in the book's introduction. And Adam, if you don't mind taking over the story from here.
Thanks, Andy. Hi, everybody. And this is a picture of my family, and that's who I plan for. And this was, I think, during the first week of the pandemic, when wearing a mask was still a novelty. And we addressed the pandemic in our introduction. And so I'm going to read you an excerpt now. For more than 10 years, we have been obsessed with helping people get their lives organized in case something unexpected happens. By far, the most difficult part of our mission used to be convincing people that the unexpected actually happens, and that unexpected things could happen at any time, like getting hit by a bus, as our not so subtle title suggests. And then at the beginning of 2020, the entire world was hit by a bus in the form of a pandemic. The unexpected, the very thing our company was built around, became reality for just about everyone on the planet. Life as we knew it ground to a halt. Those families that could hunkered down to minimize the impact, and most everyone feared the worst. But there were undeniable bright spots too. A warm text from a friend you lost touch with years ago, a post on social media from someone on the road to recovery, a former coworker checking in to see if you were okay. Group video calls with family members became the norm, a chance at least to see each other's smiling faces and poke fun at parents who spent half the call trying to figure out how to turn on their cameras or microphones. Birthdays, holidays, and graduations were celebrated remotely, but we could still be together. These were the moments that made us forget how tough everything had become and focus on what's really important, the hope and strength that we get from those we love, who themselves take strength from us in return.
The feelings of hope and despair that arise during a crisis can often motivate us to make lasting positive life changes. But as memories fade and normal routines return, that feeling of hope and purpose can diminish. This book is intended to help you renew, reinforce, and remind yourself of that hope for the rest of your life. We believe planning for your family and loved ones is the key. Our mission has always been to help as many people as possible prepare for the unexpected. That mission, to help people ensure that their family isn't left unprepared when the unexpected strikes, has taken on an even greater, more solemn importance now, but really it was always that way for us. Over time, as more and more people started using Everplans, we realized the site wasn't about death, it was about life. Because getting everything organized lets you live to the fullest, knowing you're prepared for anything, having done your very best for those that you love. And that's what you'll find in this book, a plan to do just that. And it's easier than you think. And speaking of loved ones, here's a good question to consider as you get started. And these are my children here. What's important to you? Most people simply say family, but we want you to go deeper than that. What's really important to you? It doesn't have to be one thing. Our lives aren't that simple. It might be something that hurts a little or even makes you uncomfortable to think about, because being challenged can spring us into action. We all have different motivations. Maybe you witnessed the chaos a friend experienced after the death of a family member and don't want your own family to suffer at the same fate. A parent might be terrified at the prospect of their young children being raised by an unfit guardian or worse, in foster care. Money is often the cause of most issues. Perhaps you don't want your family going to war over what you leave behind. Or maybe it's as simple as you waking up in the middle of the night, completely wrought at a pandemic that went from a news story to our new reality. Once you have a clear vision of your purpose, think of it as a picture-in-picture box on a TV screen following you around throughout the entire book. That picture might have an image of your kids, your spouse, your partner, your siblings, your puppy, or a person that you loved who's now gone. And when you get discouraged or overwhelmed, take a second and visualize that image in your head and then repeat this mantra. This is why I plan. Now that you know a little bit about where we're coming from, Jean's going to give the framework in which we help you get your entire life in order without losing your mind.
Thank you, Abby, Adam, and so excited to be here. And the one thing we want you to understand is this book is broken up into 3 different levels, and each builds on the last that helps you gather and organize all the stuff that you already have, all the things that you need or that you want, and then ways to add personal touches to truly make it yours. Every single task we cover throughout the entire book features something we call a plan of attack, which tells you how long something will take, how difficult it might be, and if there's any cost involved. And many of the things are free. It'll just cost you some of your time. Then there are other elements scattered throughout that we call side missions that may or may not apply to your life. This could be if you have young children, if you have aging parents, if you have a side business, if you have pets, and so many more. We also have between each level something called break times, where we discuss other elements involving planning, like when you should update your plan throughout your life, certain milestones, how to have difficult conversations with your family without emotions running wild, and also what happens if you don't do any planning at all. Now, even though this book covers every possible component of a person's life, it's broken down into easy to digest pieces to prevent anyone from getting overwhelmed. Now, we're going to give you a brief overview of each level so you know what to expect. And Abby, you're going to start off with level 1, okay?
Okay, level 1. This is where we help you get all of the following things in your life under control, which includes a system for managing all your passwords and secret codes, your money and assets organized so that you don't have a panic attack, an instruction manual for your home and vehicles, and a decluttered address book where your most useful contacts rise to the top. But if there's one thing we mention in the book repeatedly, it's passwords. It's almost comical how many times we mention them, and we have no regrets because they've just become such a vital part of our lives in so many ways.
Yeah, so the average internet user has more than 130 accounts, and that probably went up this year during the pandemic. And each of those accounts requires either an email or a username and of course, a password. And so how do you think most people keep track of them? Well, according to a Pew Research Center study, 65% of people say that they keep them all in their head. Yeah, that's right. The dominant method is memorization. which means either everyone is a super genius because I can't even remember what I had for dinner last night, or what they're doing is reusing the same passwords for multiple websites, which we all know at this point is just asking for trouble. And beyond the password issue, unlike your physical possessions, digital assets aren't always obvious. Unlike paintings or bicycles, they're not lying around the house. And so they can get lost or be rendered inaccessible if you don't get them organized. And when we say digital assets, we're talking about both the hardware and the software. And so it includes your phone and your computer and your iPad, as well as everything else online or in the cloud: social media, shopping, entertainment sites, rewards programs, family photos and videos, and so much more. And so this is all referred to as a digital estate plan, and we cover it from multiple angles throughout the book. And I don't want to give away any spoilers here, but we start the book with passwords and we end with passwords. As Abby said, they are just that important these days. And then another important aspect that we cover in level 1 is managing your home and your important contacts.
Yeah, stop for a second and just think about all that goes into running a household. This is one of our favorite illustrations from the book and shows just how menacing a house can be if you don't know the ins and outs. From the mortgage or rent to the routine maintenance to the utility bills that you pay on a monthly and yearly basis, a typical household can have more than 15 utilities, vendors, or services associated with that. And that doesn't even include how it's financed or any quirks that only you know about, like if part of the basement floods after a heavy storm. But now imagine your family trying to piece all of that together without you around to help. Do they even know where you keep the deed? Do the utilities in your name need to be canceled or transferred to someone else? If a pipe burst, is there a trusted plumber that you call to get the job done who won't rip you off? What about maintenance and care instructions for the car? There are dozens of things that you have figured out over the years to help your home operate smoothly, which is why the book explains how to create something that we call a home operating system, which is a helpful and easy to compile instruction manual for your home. We also provide a system to help you get all of the important contacts in your life organized, which can help your family in so many ways, whether it's for something routine, during an emergency, or for when it's time to settle your estate. You'll realize that while reading the book, level 1 is about getting what you already have in order. And as we move on to level 2, you'll notice that we start adding some more elements into the mix.
Correct, because level 2, it includes some of the more traditional aspects of estate planning, as well as a deeper dive into your digital world. So here's what you're going to have accomplished when you're done with this. You're going to know how to get a will and power of attorney in place, as well as know information on setting up a trust, how to organize your bills and debts into a neat, non-depressing pile, how to compose what we call a personal medical journal, and learn everything you need to know about medical directives. And you'll have brought order to every digital account and service that you use. Now, this level can seem stressful because it involves things that you might think are complicated, or you might just want to avoid completely. But we demystify it all and explain why doing this stuff will actually remove stress from your life. Now, Adam has 2 personal examples, one involving a will, another involving medical directives, that really brings this all down to earth.
Thanks, Gene. And this is a picture of my father-in-law, Marvin, with my wife, Carrie. And he was an incredible man, and he died totally unexpectedly about 3 years ago. And even though we figured he didn't have a will, we weren't entirely sure. And so we had to spend the first couple of days searching all over the place just in case. And then, of course, because there was no will, there was no official executor. And so my poor wife had to petition the court just to become the administrator of his estate. And then she had to put up a personal bond just so she'd be allowed to do all those unpleasant things like shutting down credit cards and bank accounts and things like that. It's already so yucky, and these extra steps made it extra difficult for her. And it would have been pretty easy to avoid. Creating a will is not nearly as complicated or as expensive as most people think. There are tons of free or inexpensive options online. And they do a really good job of covering the basics, and they can help you get something in place. And of course, if you have a more involved estate and like you've got a blended family, or you have properties in multiple countries or multiple states, or you have some complicated investments, it's well worth the cost of an estate attorney. or a financial advisor to help you get this completed once and for all, if only to save your family from the unnecessary burden later. And now on the flip side of this, I'd like to discuss how planning in advance ended up making all the difference for my mom. And this is a picture of me with my mom, Joan. And here's where I get to talk to you about the importance of medical directives, which are often called advance directives. And an advance directive at its core is the combination of a living will and the naming of a healthcare proxy. And it can sometimes include a do not resuscitate, a DNR, and some other components. But the importance of the advance directive cannot be overstated. And I experienced this with my mom, who unfortunately died near the end of 2019 after a pretty tough battle with cancer. And I was fortunate enough to have taken a little time several months before to sit down together with her and with my dad. And we straightened out her living will and her healthcare proxy. And then as a bonus, we got my dad's done at the same time, which was great. And we discussed what was really important to her. And, you know, it was a weird conversation. It was tough to start, but once we got going, it just started to flow. And when the end came ultimately, and she wasn't able to communicate anymore, I knew exactly what she wanted. She wanted to be home, and I knew exactly what she didn't want. And so there were no dramatic arguments with anybody else in our family. And I wasn't tortured then, and I'm still not now, by wondering if the decisions I made on her behalf were the right ones. And so that little bit of communication and planning really gave us all a lot of peace, and it gave her control over the end. And there was a study done by Stanford University that found that more than 80% of people say that they wish to avoid hospitalizations and high intensity care at the end of their lives, and that they would prefer to die at home, but their wishes are often overridden. And so, you know, while there are never any guarantees in life, having the right medical and legal documents in place will definitely increase the likelihood of you getting what you want. And one of the great things about an advance directive is that it's free to do. You don't even need a lawyer to execute it. And we actually have templates for every state on our website at everplans.com. And there's a link in the book to show you exactly where to go so that you can search for the templates for your state and get your advance directive in place really easily.
We walk you through all of this in the book, along with a quick, easy to understand reason as to what each of these legal or official documents provide and the decisions that you need to make. Here's a quick overview though. Number one, your will. Who gets your assets, and do you need to name guardians for any dependents? Power of attorney. Who should be making financial and legal decisions on your behalf if you can't? And then advance directives, as Adam was just describing. Who should be making health decisions on your behalf if you can't? And what sort of treatments would you want? When boiled down, it's actually pretty simple, and you'll find that most of your effort won't be in doing the paperwork, but really in making the decisions. And then lastly, trusts. How to protect assets, and even what trusts are in the first place, because they can get really complicated. And I have to admit, I still find them a little confusing. But here are some questions to think about. Do you have any of these documents in place already? Have you put off creating them? Do you want them, but you're just not sure where to start? One of the goals of the book and Everplans is to make sure that you create the plan that's best for you and your family. So definitely don't hesitate to contact us with questions or concerns that might be keeping you from crossing these documents off your to-do list. And this brings us to the final level, which focuses on personalization.
And level 3 does allow you to personalize your plan with a slew of finishing touches, which include an organizational plan for all your meaningful photos, recipes, and family heirlooms, a record of your personal history, interests, beliefs, and lessons so everyone remembers you the way that you want to be remembered, a model for writing letters and recording videos for family, friends, loved ones that they could cherish for the rest of their lives, a complete understanding of everything you need to know about planning a funeral. And we even include some templates on how to write an obituary if you're up for it.
I want to share something that isn't actually in the final draft of the book, but it's a story I love, and you can think of it as bonus footage. I was talking about family traditions over the holidays. This was pre-COVID. And one of our dear family friends, Melanie, took me aside. She was hosting a brunch and she led me into her living room. And she showed me there something called a miniature chest drink table that her late mother had found antiquing in Canada. Melanie recalled how her mother had 2 armchairs next to each other with this chest between them. And after she died, Melanie and her family were packing up the apartment and they found notes on the back of her favorite things, including the chest. And it said, "For Melanie, little table, to Melanie, much love, Mom." She also left a note on the back of a Salvador Dali lithograph that Melanie bought her in Paris that said, "My only Dali from my only Mel." The miniature table and Dali lithograph are beautiful, but the notes make them so much more meaningful. This is a beautiful way to express love and say goodbye, but it doesn't have to be a surprise. And while the miniature chest drink table is safely in Melanie's possession, what if she had never found the note? Cleaning out a late parent's home while grief-stricken could lead to discarding items that have a story to tell. The same goes for a family member swooping in and taking everything, especially if they think those items have value. A person we work closely with told us how an in-law looted all of the classic furniture from a deceased parent's house before anyone had a chance to claim anything. And while this was many years ago and she's not sure she even wanted any of it, it's still a minor point of contention among the family. So anything that you can do to prevent possible conflicts in the future is always a benefit, especially if it only requires some paper and tape or a few sticky notes.
Here's the thing I learned working with Abby and Adam all these years is they, like many people, are obsessed with food, and they also happen to be incredible cooks. I know this firsthand. I've experienced it. Thank you both for those meals that you've made me over the years. But it was so much so that I insisted that each of them include at least one of their favorite recipes, word for word, in the book, so people could understand how they could start organizing their own recipes so future generations can enjoy them too. And now I'd like the master chefs to explain their creations and what organizing recipes means to them. And Abby, you're up first.
Well, recipes are extremely important to me, as I'm sure they're important to many people here in attendance. My late beloved babysitter, Lydia, used to make these incredible empanadas. And she shared the recipe with me before she died. And every time I miss her, I make the empanadas and they bring back these amazing memories. Plus, I get to share them with my kids, which creates new memories for us. I didn't actually include that recipe in the book. I shared something sweeter, which is my mandel bread recipe, which is a cookie recipe that was adapted from my grandmother's and my mom's recipe. And you can see me here on the left with my sister showing my daughter, Danny, how to make it. Adam actually went a more savory route.
Yeah, I chose something just a little spicier. It's my chili recipe that I've been trying to perfect for almost 30 years now. And there's a picture of it in my favorite yellow pot that my grandmother gave me that I always try to make my chili in. And, you know, the recipe is in this great Excel spreadsheet that automatically recalculates ingredient amounts based on the number of people that you're serving. And I include replacement options for hard to find ingredients and even little tips along the way, like reminding you not to rub your eyes after you've just handled the chili peppers. And it's very meaningful to me. And this notion of passing along highly meaningful family recipes plays into a host of other aspects that we include in the book to help you keep your legacy alive. And so think of all the personal lessons and tips and knowledge that you'd like to leave behind, whether it's information about your family history that nobody else might know, or things that you've loved about your life, or just lessons that you want to pass on to future generations. And technically, all this stuff together is called an ethical will, but we like to call it Spill Your Life. And in the book, we break it into 6 rounds so it feels a little bit like a game show. And, you know, this stuff might seem obvious, but when you're answering them, you will realize how many of these questions do you wish you could have asked someone who's no longer around?
Along these same lines, here's something I'm sure we can all agree with, which is helping others. Giving to charity is great, as is devoting your time to a cause. And if you've done work to help others, whether it's regularly volunteering for events, being a big brother or sister, manning a phone for a telethon, or giving donations to organizations or institutions that you're proud to support, perhaps you've even gone a step further and allocated money from your estate to make sure the money gets to the right place. But these details should be clear and direct so that the people that you leave behind know to continue to support these causes in your honor. And this brings us to the final part of the book and the inevitable part of life, the end.
Yeah, we weren't kidding when we said we help you write your own obituary, because we include 4 templates from small all the way up to supersized. But before this, we walk you through every single aspect of planning a funeral, including what needs to be done if you opt for burial or cremation, ways you could set money aside, and how to add personal touches to the service to truly get the funeral that you want.
This may seem like a sensitive topic, but you can also just view it as a practical discussion to have with your family. For example, for my brother's funeral, we probably ended up paying way too much for the casket because we didn't know any better at the time. And when discussing this with my parents, my mom said that her preference was for the plain pine box, but my dad surprised us all by saying that he wanted the most expensive casket that we could find, which was good to know. We had no idea. But this is why communication is vital, so that you're not spending too much money when you don't need to, or spending too little in the case of my dad.
Yes, communication is central to almost everything that we cover in the book, because sharing this type of information and these wishes with others is what truly makes a plan complete. We also know how tricky it can be talking about some of these things with loved ones. Talking with family can be littered with emotional and sometimes suspicious landmines. And when the topics include money, medical issues, or death, it can be even more terrifying. And so consider for a second that people would rather talk about no longer being on Earth than talk about their finances. The Wells Fargo study that's pictured here and that's included in the book also revealed that even though people aren't comfortable talking about money, it's one of the biggest stresses in their lives, and it often causes sleepless nights. And so we offer plenty of tips on how to eliminate the fear and the stress from these topics, and how to break the ice, so that you can get your family talking and planning together.
Thank you so much. This barely scratches the surface of what we cover in the book. We can't wait for you to read it and get your own plan completed and out of the way. And if you think the book isn't for you, I just have one final story. Before I started Ever Plans with Adam, I was explaining the concept of the company to my parents, and my dad, who fancies himself an expert planner, said, "I don't need this. All my legal documents and important plans are with our estate attorney." And then my mom interrupted and said, "But wait, Milton, who's our estate attorney?" So you might have a folder with legal documents and instructions, or a file with an attorney, but our lives are made up of so much more. Plus, if no one knows where it is or who you did it with, it could be like you never did it in the first place. So the first step is getting started. The book helps you do that and so much more. Thank you for having us, and we're here to answer any questions that you may have, and also hear from you as to any stories that you have around this that might be helpful to other people. So I'll pass it back over now.
Thank you. That was great. Certainly gave me a lot to think about. I'm sure it gave everybody else a lot to think about too. Do people have questions, or does anybody want to share their story to start with? You can just unmute yourself if you would like. And
hi guys, I'm Margie. It's so great to hear you guys. I have your book and I have it. Can you hear me okay?
yes.
Oh, great. Thanks so much for having this. My mom passed away on December 3rd of 2020. And I heard about this book not too long after it, and it was just perfect timing. And going through all her things was a real lesson in what I need to do for my kids. My husband and I have a lot of things prepared. Sorry for the noise. but there's so much other stuff I was just going through today, just old papers and kids, the school stuff. And, it's just a process, and I'm a hoarder. I keep everything. So I can't wait to dive into your book at some point and really take the bull by the horns. So thank you so much.
Thank you for sharing that story. And we're so sorry to hear about your loss. And
Yeah, thank you. It's never easy, right?
no, it's never easy.
Yeah. And I'm sorry for your loss too. And yeah, it's just hard.
Thank you.
Really hard.
What we've learned in the many years of doing this is that everybody has a story, and everybody has gone through something or other like this, whether it's related to, an immediate family member or a friend, or so we know we're not alone.
And it's also helped us when we've been writing it, because we do include a lot of stories. We've spoke with a lot of people who had issues or situations that some people think a will or those aspects are the most important, but then we've come across ones that are a little more unusual that turn out to be pretty common. I mean, Abby, when we spoke, people not understanding how to use home automation or light bulbs around the house, things along those lines, that have become issues as well.
I'll tell you one thing that happened with my is when they would, how she'd have to change them. She never changed the list. So every time I tried to get in, I could never get in. So that's something, I don't know how to tell people to update their passwords, but yeah.
Yeah, that's why we are such big believers in password managers. There are ones, for instance, called Dashlane or LastPass that you can use, and they integrate with the browser on your computer, and you can also put them on your phones. And so it automatically updates your passwords if you change them on one of these websites. And it syncs them across all of your computers and all of your phones. And I was lucky enough to have gotten my mom using one of those a few years back. And, not only did it change her life because she wasn't constantly forgetting passwords and having to do password resets and so forth, but it made my life so much easier after she passed, because as I had to go in and out of her various online shopping accounts to shut them down, and her email accounts and so forth, I had all of it in one place, and it was all the most up-to-date versions. So we're all addicted to password managers, and we really encourage you to try one out.
Michelle Cal.
Yeah.
Oh, sorry. I was going to say, Michelle Kaufman has asked if you could, if it's in the book, and also if you could discuss things that can happen while you're still alive. Her husband had to be rehospitalized after surgery, and she had challenges along the way with not being able to talk to the disability insurance and other things on his behalf.
Yeah, one of our side missions does involve dealing with people that might have special needs, or also caring for parents, caring for spouses that are going through difficult times. And this is where we get into how a power of attorney helps, so you could talk to people on their behalf, also having access to their accounts and being able to speak that way. Because basically, when you're putting these plans together for yourself, we really encourage you to do it for other people in your life as well. Like Adam mentioned earlier, when he was doing the advance directive and those decisions with his mother, doing it for his father. And a lot of times for people to break the ice and to really get into the whole planning mode, they like to start with someone else. And then all of a sudden they've realized that they could do it themselves. But then you also realize some of these plans, and you're going to notice that as you do it, so much of it overlaps with other people in your lives as well.
I was going to make a comment about, a lot of people will make sure to pick out guardians and have that written up in their will. But my best friend was a single mom, and she died, and she was great. She had a ton of life insurance, and she had her guardians picked out, but there was no real discussion with the guardians beforehand about how she might have wanted her daughter to be raised. And and one thing in particular that's coming up now is the whole concept of going to college. And I know that was a very important thing to her, and you know, the family has a little bit different viewpoint on it, and it would have been nice if she had had a conversation with the guardians prior, so or had something written.
Yeah, Abby's probably going to say the same thing as I am, so I'll make it short. But yes, we think communication is such an important part of planning, right? It's not just about the legal documents. It's about making sure that people understand what your thinking was and what your wishes are, so that it actually turns out the way you wanted it to turn out.
That's exactly right. And I mean, even today, people can take it a step further. They can even take a video of themselves talking about how they would want their kids to be raised. That way, you know, sometimes seeing somebody's reactions, or, you know, talking about it in person might even come across more powerfully than just written out. And so there's a lot you can do. The most important thing is to make sure you do it.
And we have a whole list of, when it comes to choosing a guardian, questions you should ask. You should ask first yourself, like how you want to align with any possible guardian, and then other questions that you'd want to sit down and talk. And you might find out that you think that person's great, you love that person, but they'd be a terrible guardian. And there might be someone that there could be that animosity too, where someone assumes. This is why naming someone in your will is so important, because they could say, oh, well, of course I'm going to raise this child. You know, I'm the next in line, not to realize that maybe it's someone totally different. Maybe it's not a family member that's going to raise that child.
We've also heard stories about people naming guardians, and they don't even tell the people that they've named them as guardians. I had two cousins, and this was right before COVID. This must have been like last February. And I was having drinks with them. They're both from, one of them's in Arizona, one of them lives in New Jersey, and we were in New York City having seen each other for the first time. And the two of them at this event told each other that they had named each other as guardians, and they both had no idea that they had done that. And there are 5 kids in this whole equation. So I thought that was really fortuitous that we were all meeting, and I was able to get them to share this information with each other.
I know of 2 instances where both parents died in a traffic accident, and the children, there was no guardians named. And in both situations, the parents of one of the parents got the children. And I know in both couples, they would not have wanted that. So,
yeah.
That's the thing that Adam actually pointed out when we were writing it. He said how lawyers get people to usually, Adam, if you'd like to say how lawyers usually get people to choose a guardian, because it's such a difficult decision sometimes.
Yeah, so I mean, it's often the thing that keeps people from completing their wills, because a lot of the other decisions that you make in doing a will tend to be a little bit more straightforward and a little bit less emotional when you're just dealing with assets. But then when it comes down to choosing who the guardians are, it's almost impossible, and it's what bogs people down. And I think a lot of lawyers just sort of will tell you, okay, well, this is what's going to happen. The judge is gonna invite anybody that's ever known you or who's part of your family to come and ask to be the guardian for your children. And so think of all the people you know who might show up to that event, and think of which one of them you want to actually be the guardian. And that should tell you why this is such an important decision to make, and why you shouldn't put off doing your will for some other time down the road.
This whole conversation also brings up another thing that's important, which is to make sure that after you've made decisions, it's always a good idea to revisit them, because things can change, and you might, and things could change in profound ways. People you've named as guardians could, no longer be part of your family anymore. They could no longer be people you're speaking with. They might not even be alive. And so, and we've heard stories about disaster stories, not necessarily about guardians, but about other issues that they didn't, one woman that we spoke with whose husband died, this was about 2 years ago, she found they hadn't reviewed their wills in 20 years. And when she went to go look at their will, she realized that they had bequeathed an enormous amount of money to his alma mater back 20 years ago when they had more money and they were able to make that. And now today they're in a totally different situation. She's in a totally different situation, doesn't have that kind of money, or would never have chosen to give that money to his business school. So it's important to, and we say you don't have to look at this every day or every week, but it's important once a year to just do a quick review of all of this.
Yeah, what Abby just said is perfect, because there's so many other things where you name beneficiaries or for parts of your life. And as you change, we mentioned one of our break times in the book that talks about those milestones, which is getting married, another one splitting up. So let's say your power of attorney, someone who has complete control of your finances, and now you're divorced or you're separated or something. That person, that document will still be in effect. It doesn't just automatically disappear. If you name them as a beneficiary, if you say in your will, this person's getting everything, and then you get remarried, you have you move on, and then something happens, that money's still going to the original person you named. So that's a big issue. If you have a new family and you're like, I don't want your ex to get this stuff, then you're going to want to go through all these beneficiary designations. And it's not just in estate planning. It could be for investments. It could be transfer on death accounts that you have for bank accounts. We talk a lot about joint accounts in the book as well, and why that's so important to have in place, because a lot of times things, when someone dies, everything's frozen, and you have to go through the whole process of court and proving that the will's valid and proving that you're who you say you are and you have rights to do this. And if those things aren't in place, you might not be able to pay mortgage, you might not be able to pay bills, other debts could be racking up because you can't close a credit card. Those are little things that, like we cover, that don't seem like issues now, but the moment it hits you, it does become a major factor.
Can I say thank you so much for a very informative and well-organized review. And I wish I would have had your book 3 weeks ago when I finalized my will, etc., to the tune of over $600, which I presume is could have been saved. So I will send and highly recommend the book and send people to Kathy to purchase it. Could you please state the name of your website? I didn't quite hear it correctly.
Yes, our website is everplans.com, EVERPLANS. And if you buy a copy of the book, you do get a free year of Everplans service.
Thank you.
But I will say, I don't think you wasted your money. It very well could cost $600 or more, depending on how complicated somebody's estate is. If you have a complicated life, situation, you should absolutely be talking with an attorney.
Yeah, that's the thing we always say, because we aren't attorneys, we're not financial advisors, we're not doctors, we're not lawyers, but we also think that having something that is in place, and when you have the confidence of going to an attorney and doing it and having your will set that way, it can only help you later. And having everything as solid as possible, it really is the best way. And you could look at it as definitely money well spent, because we've talked to so many people, and when they have it executed the proper way, it just gives you that much more confidence that you did everything correctly, and there's not going to be any squabbling, and it's going to be able to be presented to the court without them thinking, was this real or was this not? It's definitely a peace of mind that you should be happy with.
I'd like to ask a question, and thank you very much for doing this. I did buy the book, and I'm pleased with my purchase. I haven't gotten very far in it, and I have done a few things already, because I'm probably more senior than many of you others. But could you expand a little bit about Everplans? Is this strictly a digital company, or do you just tell me more about what Everplans is?
Sure. Well, first of all, the book stands on its own. It is a totally separate thing. But Everplans, it's a great companion guide to the website. Everplans is all digital service that allows you to create and store and share and keep up to date all of the important information in your life that the book covers. Everything, and it allows you, essentially, it's a secure digital service that allows you to upload information and share it with people in your life who need access to it. And so you can put all this information into your Ever plan. You can upload your wishes, you can upload your documents, and then we teach you everything you need to know about all the things that the book covers. And then we also allow you to designate people in your life that we call deputies. And those are the people who you grant access to certain sections of your Ever plan. And you can actually even designate people to be deputies for after you pass away, so that only information is made available to them after you're no longer here.
And how tech savvy do you need to be to
You
use?
it's very user friendly. We hear, at least that's what that's the way we designed it. And we get great feedback on how user friendly it is. It's meant to be simple to use.
Okay, thank you.
Do you guys have any words of wisdom for bringing up whatever the hard topic is with other people, whether it is getting a will or talking about your funeral or anything along those lines? Or money?
Yes. The answer is yes. We have a lot of, Jean, do you want to take that question?
I love stealth tactics when talking to family, because I know that sometimes coming right out and asking things is a bit difficult. So we have a whole part of the book where we discuss, and it starts off with talking about money and how to bring these things up and how to normalize the conversations, because that becomes the biggest issue, that people don't talk about things until a crisis hits, and that's when you're asking for trouble. If the first time your family ever discusses money or finances is when, it's usually when someone needs it, and that usually creates the problem. So how do you start blending it into your life? And then other ways, how you make it about yourself. You say things like, I was thinking about getting a will done. Should I go to a lawyer? Should I do it online? Any suggestions? And you get people talking about what they've done, and that way they could start doing it that way. A lot like how Adam mentioned, once you get the ball rolling, you'll realize people are a lot more interested and open about speaking of this stuff. If they do have a funeral, if they do have burial plots, or if they say, you know what, I don't want to be buried, I want to be cremated, this is what I'm into, then that way you kind of get it on the record, and then you could build from there. And that's always the purpose. Start somewhere and build.
Oh, Adam, you're on mute.
Sorry, we had dog barking chaos in the background for a minute there. Sometimes the conversations just kind of take on a life of their own if you can start small. I was talking about that conversation I had with my mom and my dad, and it was interesting because it started kind of where I sat down to help them organize my mom's medications. And then that was an opportunity to start talking about some other medical related issues, which then became an opportunity to do the advanced directives together. And then once we got into that, it just started snowballing. And my dad, who never wants to talk about things like this, jumped up and left the room. And 15 minutes later came back, and he was so proud. He found the deed to his family cemetery plot from like 100 years ago that, was tucked in some file cabinet somewhere. And he was so excited to show it to me. And I was actually really glad that he did, because that's where he wants to be buried. And I never would have known that at all. And so, people feel a little bit heroic once they start kind of unburdening themselves with a conversation like this, even if they're reluctant to have it at all at the beginning. And so sometimes starting small can really lead to big things.
I mean, even talking to people about recipes. My husband's grandmother, who we were very close with, she actually passed away just 2 weeks ago. But a few years ago, we were sitting on her couch, and I said to her, I have to know how to make your cabbage roll recipe, because I have to know, they're amazing. I need to. And so she started talking to me about that. And then she said, here's how you make the cabbage rolls. And by the way, here's my advance directive in case you ever need it. It's like those kinds of things can start, people just start thinking about it. Doesn't have to be such a scary conversation.
And this is also a topic that we know that people that have lived longer are much more attuned to something like this. People that have dealt with loss, people that have gone through this kind of thing. It doesn't seem, and sometimes even when, that's why at times bringing it up to people who are younger is more helpful, because they might be worried and concerned that they're like, I don't want to jinx this. I don't want to be superstitious. I don't want to think that I'm worried that something's going to happen to you. But a lot of times that's how I know, speaking with my parents about certain things, they're like, when you talk to them and they've been to so many funerals and they've witnessed so much, you realize, okay, that made me feel like I could start speaking with them about it in a more practical way. And that's another thing that we focus on, which is the practicality. If people will get too emotional, you just want to find out, because the goal is that siblings aren't fighting over how someone should be, what the funeral should be, or how things should be split up. And those are the big issues that we always worry about, that it's that outcome of, you don't want to leave behind this kind of strife among the family, because that's what usually a lot of these little rivalries or things within the family can bubble up at those moments, because people are so emotional, they're so upset, their whole life has changed. And now, how do you make sure that you could ease them through that? Because as we said, like the grief, there's really no cure for that. That's just something you have to deal with. But the logistics can be completely managed. And if you get those out of the way, then people can focus then more on how you lived your life, how much they cared about you, and how to remember you the proper way.
I have to say something. My mother died about 3 years ago, and she was one who always wanted to plan and talk about things, and she didn't live very close to me. And so every time I went to visit her, she'd say, I have this, and she'd write all these notes, and she'd say, well, here's where I keep this. And I didn't want to deal with it. I didn't want to listen. I'd say, Mom, no, and I think if I only had this book and was organized, so I would take notes, but I was in denial. And so I would take all these notes and I would videotape where things were. But I was always in denial, and I never kept them anywhere. I didn't have them organized. So when she did die, I was just a mess. And so I would try to remember, where did she have that? And so this is a fabulous book. And I wish I was more organized. And so, I think this book is just going to help me organize myself for whatever. So I just want to say that.
It's 8 o'clock.
It's a great thing. And I was
sharing that with us, and it makes us feel good to know that we're inspiring you a little bit to take a different approach and to being able to tackle it. So we hope it won't be scary. Trust me, it won't be scary. Jean will make you laugh in this book.
Abby, Adam, and Jean, thank you so much. I can tell you at the library, as I said to Kathy earlier and to all of you, the book is checked out. I have not seen it. And now I'm so very curious. So for all of us at home right now, we know that we can wait for it at the library because it is so popular. We can support Main Point Books in downtown Wayne, our independent bookstore. Kathy, I don't know what we'd do without you. And we offer, the way the library offers, Kathy Feebach at Main Point Books also offers you a copy of this book tonight. But I wanted to say that, yes, but I wanted to maybe, what can we do now? We're at home, we don't have this book. We should go to until we get the book, we should go to Everplans online and look at it, correct? Is that right? Is that a good step until we get the book?
Everplans, you could go to encasethebook.com and which Adam put here in the chat. You can go to encasethebook.com and learn more about the book, or you can go to everplans.com and you can sign up for the digital service while you're waiting for your book to arrive.
Okay.
And there are instructions on the encasethebook.com page for how to, really the way it works is that you have to buy the book and then you show proof of buying the book and you get a free year of the service. But
Okay.
if you just can't wait and you need to sign up for the service tonight and you can't get access to the book, sign up for Everplans and email. I'm going to put an email address in the chat, marketing@everplans.com, and let us know if you're having trouble and we'll help you get sorted out.
Okay.
Is this presentation going to be available as a recording on the library website?
Eventually, Helen, yes. What we're doing is recording it for Vince at Mainline Television. And then Vince, the plan is usually next month, which would be March. It would air on Mainline Television. And then Vince makes it all pretty into a YouTube video and the library gets it and we post it. He may post it as well, but yeah, ultimately the library would love to have this on our Radnor Memorial Library YouTube channel. So yes, this is a good thing to have.
Yeah, I want to send it to my brother.
I was gonna say, if you email me, I'll send you the link too. So you can just mainpointbooks@gmail.com. We will send out the link. We should have it by tomorrow. I would thank you, everybody, and thank you so much for doing this. It was great. And I am looking forward to continuing to sell your book for a long time.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, Abby,
Take care, everybody.
Adam, and Jean. Thank you, everybody. It's
Thank
wonderful.
you.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you. Be safe.